Call the May 16th DeSoto City Council meeting to order. We'll start with roll call, please.
Here.
Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our first item tonight is a public hearing to consider our CDBG project selection. Is that you, Brad?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. As we discussed at the last council meeting, as part of the process for submitting the CDBG grant for the 2020 project, we need to have a public hearing on the projects and allow the public the opportunity to weigh in on the project selection. So we talked about the last meeting. We did have 6 projects that we'd suggested to the council, and as I highlighted below, the 82nd Street Ottawa to Delaware project for the sidewalks was the preferred option. One thing also we talked about were the census blocks, and I did include a exhibit showing the census blocks for DeSoto, and also shows that Area 1, really our census block 1, is the area that does qualify for the CDBG grant. So I recall, and Mike, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the county did tell us if we had a project that was down in the Clearview City area in census block 2, they would accept that. I do remember having that conversation at one point. Anyway, just for a little bit of information, the project length is about 1,500 feet long. There will be some, and I've actually walked the site. There will be some driveways and some things like that. There's some power poles that will need to be relocated. So there will be some rework as far within the right of way that will be necessary. There'll also be some areas of retaining walls as well. So while I don't have a hard estimate of cost, actually I got some numbers from Justin Milburn. We're going to go out and take a look at it tomorrow morning and try to get a better number. I think at this point we just need to submit for the maximum amount of $100,000 that you can turn in for the Community Development Block Grant. So with that sort of concludes my remarks. You still have the picture or the exhibit of the 6 locations within DeSoto that we had considered, and certainly you're able to direct us to submit a different project and obviously take input from the public on this item. So
Okay.
with that, I will.
Any questions for Brad or thoughts on alternate project selection? I think we were all pretty much in agreement that this was the one we thought we ought to be doing. Fit in with our objectives with the connectivity. So if there are not, I will open up the public hearing then. I open a public hearing to take comment on the 2020 CDBG block grant application. Anyone wish to speak to this matter? Okay. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Action on this?
Yeah, I think tonight, council, we'd like to have a motion selecting the project. The as with every year, the application is due down to the county toward the end of this month. I think next 23rd. Yeah, so we will need to select a project so we can finalize the application.
Well, does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. We approve the Ottawa to Delaware, 82nd Street from Ottawa to Delaware as a CDBG project for this next coming year.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you. All right, our next item is our consent agenda. Tonight we have on the consent agenda approve the minutes of our council meeting of May 2nd, approve pay ordinance number 854, and approve
Just generally approve. Sorry, that was a typo. It
Approve the
didn't
world.
get taken off. the
We'll
agenda.
strike item C from the consent agenda, please. Any discussion or questions about the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Carmichael,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right. Next is call to public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not listed on tonight's agenda. The comments that are discussed under call to public may or may not be acted on by the council during this meeting. There's a 4-minute time limit. Anyone wish to address the council tonight on a call to public? Daryl, please come take the podium. Okay, don't worry. Your time's not starting yet.
Okay. All right. This is in regard to the Commerce Park Street request that Dustin's or Jason's making. I wonder, there's a lot of details about this that I am concerned about, and probably the one that really concerns me the most is that I thought this was going to be voted on this evening, but I understand it's going to be next meeting possibly. But that there's always unintended consequences for things, and I hope that all these issues that I bring up will be addressed and considered before any action is completely taken. I'm wondering, it says that, from what I understand, that Jason will pay for this up front to begin with, but then you will be reimbursed upon additional real estate taxes that are from that area. But I don't know how big that area is, whether it's just adjoining these 2 streets he proposes, or whether it's all of the undeveloped land, or how this works out. I know these are all questions, and I don't expect you to answer them now, but some of the possible concerns I have is that what effect is this going to have on the school district and any possible loss of revenue from real estate taxes. And well, anytime we build, even residential or commercial, the streets get a beating. The amount of heavy loads that travel down Kill Creek Road is just astonishing now. And out in Oak Country, this happened last summer, but they were hauling so much material out of their rock and soil and so forth that there's 3 places that are really breaking down. You've got to drive. It's, instead of a speed bump, it's a speed dip in a couple of locations. And so with heavier traffic, and this isn't just this site, but other places, the city at large then is going to have to pay more for street repairs. And with more rapid growth, there's a constant need for more emergency equipment, police, ambulance, fire. I hear more and more sirens each day, and it isn't just 1 or 2. I mean, it's a constant, any time of day or night. The request has a feeling to me that's a little reminiscent of a tax-abated apartment complex that was passed some time ago. And actions that are considered to be legal aren't always found to be just to all parties concerned. And I know we've changed our town's motto from, I'm not certain what it is now, Sarah could probably tell me, but it used to be that we were a community that were built on small town values. And the town is obviously changing dramatically. So these are things that I just hope that you will look at closely before any decisions made. I thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Anyone else wish to address the council tonight? All right, seeing none, we will move on. Number 3, old business. A, discussion regarding items to address as part of TIF development. that will formally be considered at the June 6th meeting. Mike?
Yes, Council, I'll give a brief introduction. Patrick prepared the memo that's in your packet tonight. The TIF district that Mr. Zimmerman was just talking about, we've had a number of actions here, starting back in March at the council level with a funding agreement, and then in April we actually established the district itself, and then last month we set the public hearing and we received the project development plan for the district. And I think we know the area, we know generally what the financial ask is in terms of the incentive that's being requested and the improvements that will be provided with those funds, but we haven't really had an opportunity to have much discussion among the council members as to what the elements that we might want to include in the development agreement. So a development agreement would go along with the TIF district, and essentially there's not really any limitation on what we can include in that development agreement. So we thought that it would be appropriate to have an opportunity to have some dialogue about that, and Patrick included 4 items in your packet that we've identified just in individual discussions with council members and among staff, and with Mr. Hicks as well. We do want to, you can express your views on the percentage and level and term and specifics of the finances of the deal, but we do want to caution a little bit on the detail of that discussion, because the decision is being made at the June 7th meeting, and like a lot of things with the public hearing, we don't want to prejudge the issue before we hear any public input and have that process take place. Kevin Wimpy is here with Gilmore Bell to answer any procedural questions you might have, and hopefully keep us out of trouble if we stray into dangerous waters with this discussion. But I think that's the bulk of the intent tonight, is to have that discussion and allow staff, give staff some direction about that development agreement, the terms of that. So it will be the first time you're seeing the development agreement at the June 7th meeting. And other than that, I think there's been enough background that I think we do understand the main parameters of what the proposal is. So I'll stop there and answer any questions you might have, and turn it over to you for discussion.
Okay. So I think you had some questions that you wanted
Yes,
to address,
yes,
or
I-
ask, I guess, just get asked, so I'll go ahead and let you start.
Okay,
Danny. All right.
there is one major thing I want to add to the TIF, if I can, and make that proposal. I want to talk about percentages at a later time, but I want to also hear the public information from that public meeting. But I would like to add in there that the developer make a good faith effort to utilize the Soto labor and businesses during the construction phase of this project, and share that efforts that are being made with the city. So that was something that I wanted to do. And then the percentage levels and the increments of the time Levitt, the developer, put out, then I'm going to just hold off on that until after public hearing.
Okay.
So thank you, Mayor. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Danny. Any other questions, comments, additions to the things that you think we should include in our development agreement?
I was going to say, I don't think this is something necessarily to include, but clarification, and I more know the answer already, but it kind of addresses some of Daryl's. As far as school district, the 2017 law pretty much shields them from any negative impact on the school district. Therefore, there doesn't need to be an inclusion of anything about the school district in here, is my understanding, as well as the school board had been briefed on it 2 meetings ago, and at this last meeting, they chose not to take action, therefore paving the way that this is acceptable to them, is my understanding. Would those be accurate?
Yeah, that's right. There's a statutory requirement that we provide notice to the school district, and they have a veto power. They could stop the whole thing. They talked about that at their last board meeting. and I attended that meeting. Essentially, that was the message that statutorily, the majority of their mills are shielded from this, so they'll still be collecting those and getting those. There would be a small portion of school district mills that aren't shielded, but I don't know the percentages, but it's not a significant amount. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to say it's like a quarter of what they would otherwise collect. But their attitude was essentially that because there's no residential component to this, that their costs wouldn't necessarily increase, and so they essentially did not exercise their veto power at that time.
Lloyd?
Yeah, Mayor, I have some comments and concerns about the project kind of in general. And I don't know if that's something you want me to go ahead and say now, if you want me to do it at a later time. If what you're wanting now is just details about the specific agreement.
I guess I
then
just
I
want to
don't
make
wanna
sure
do.
that we don't,
Yeah,
as
I'm-
Mike said, cloud the air with opinion prior to having the public
Sure.
hearing.
That's fine then.
I mean, we will have the opportunity again at the next meeting to.
Are we going to be expected to make a decision at the next meeting?
That's the intent. Yeah, I think that's the calendar that we've developed. Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
that's the idea.
Yeah.
Statutorily, you can continue it or something if you can't do it in the past. But the idea is that you consider ordinance in the next meeting approving the TIF plan.
So are you thinking some of your questions would require time for a response and?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, there are more comments about the project in general, and so, but, it can wait if that's a more appropriate time to do it. It's a big issue, and, when we have a public meeting and going to hear from the public, and then everybody has to, it's kind of hard. I think most people are already going into it with a decision, and I don't know, it seems kind of questionable to
So
me. on that,
clarification,
so.
when is the public hearing and? when we're-
June
June 7th, our
okay.
next council meeting.
That's the
meeting.
public.
2 weeks.
So we'll
from
have the
tonight.
public
Yeah.
hearing, and then following the public hearing, or before, whatever, we'd have our normal actually following.
It'll
that,
be
right?
following. It'll be a regular agenda. So we'll have a public hearing at the start, and then a regular agenda item.
Discussion.
Is how we normally do that.
And then we would vote on that project at that time.
Yeah, that's the intent. Yeah.
So it's the 6th, right? June 6th, not 7th.
How about probably
I thought it was
seven?
6th.
Sorry, I stand correct. Yeah, it's the 6th. Sorry about that.
Well, I'll just bring one thing, then I'm not going to go into detail on what I all wanted to say, but, one of the things that, we see on the project and on the paperwork is the assessed value now, the assessed value afterwards. We see how much the developer is paying for it now. We're asked to give a TIF to develop the whole area. But what we don't see and know is, okay, after we put all this money in, we don't know what he's making afterwards on selling all these lots back again. Maybe it's $500,000 a lot, and we're putting ourselves in the ground when he's making $2 million. I mean, I just threw that number out. I'm sure it's nothing near that, but that's a concern of mine, is that we're doing this as a issue without really knowing the dollar amount of the value of what he will make after it, after we've, as a city, have forgoed all the funding to put the project in. So I guess that would be kind of the one question that maybe is a number thing that I don't know that we have a right to know, but it seems like it's not anywhere spelled out in here other than a total assessed value at the end.
Well, really good point. So I've got our financial advisors, Columbia Capital, is doing a cost-benefit analysis on the project. And it's actually, I think, more of a but-for analysis in our policy. It's not statutorily required with the TIF, but our policy does require it. So we will get, I think they've been working with the applicant, getting the 10-year pro forma numbers. And so I think some of those questions will be answered with that analysis that will be presented at the June 6th meeting.
Do you feel that that's lot of information we may be having to go through that night to make a decision. I mean, with the public hearing at the same time, plus all this and other new information coming in at the same time.
Well, it's certainly the discretion of the council as to whether you want to make a decision that night, but the intent is to get any new information, the analysis I just talked about, and any new information in your council packets the Friday before, so that you have that week to digest that.
okay,
And then the
okay.
public hearing, obviously, if there's new information that's submitted, then as
Okay.
part of that would be the only new information that you would get.
I had asked Mike to just pull me a couple of pieces of information together. Two things I wanted to know: what we've collected off of this property over the past 20 years, and what we'd spent on maintenance on Commerce Drive over the past same time frame. And so that's why Mike has that last page attached to this memo. That's what that information is. I wanted to know what exactly, what revenues were generated off this property. And what, I know that it's not responsible for all the maintenance of Commerce Drive, but obviously the $105 that we've gotten doesn't begin to cover the frontage that is encompassed by this property, so.
Well, in addition, I didn't put it on here, but the vast majority of that $8,998 is the traffic signal benefit district,
Oh, okay.
specifically for the signal. I'd say probably 7,000.
Because that's what okay. The school district, that's a lot more than the school district said. That
No,
they
no,
were
the school district
collecting.
said they collected like $700 off of, well, I think that's about right.
Yeah, so. That was the point of that last page of information there. Anyone else have any comments, questions, discussion points?
Just
Kevin?
clarification and kind of expanding on Councilman Daniels' comment, I guess, just so we don't misunderstand. The school district is held harmless for their capital mills, right? And so, and I'm not, I'm one to advocate for making sure that we protect the school district, but just to be clear, they aren't getting the advantage of the increment on the unprotected mills either. And so those are going into paying down the obligations of the TIF district. So there is an unprotected portion and the increment on the unprotected portion that is going into paying this back. As I understand from the school board's lack of objection to this is that this project isn't placing a burden on the school district that's out of proportion to the portion that is protected. So if it were a different kind of use, I think they would have a different position, and if it were a different kind of use, I would have a different position.
Well,
But I
and-
just want to be clear that it's not all protected.
Well, and my comments came from one meeting that I had with Alvy Cater on Wednesday, where I specifically asked him after we got done with non-related business about two things, and I'll share part of the conversation on that later. But I asked him, looked at him and said, okay, now that we're done with the school stuff, personal stuff, two questions. Number one, TIF. And he said that it does not really affect them and they do not have a problem with it because it is commercial. Like you said, if it was another apartment, an abatement, or anything like that, then they'd be very different. So at that point, they are completely fine with it from his understanding. There was only one board member that had any questions about it, and his questions were satisfied. So, yeah, I understand there's an unprotected part, but they were not concerned at all about that. The other question I had was the roundabout, and I'll bring that up in the comments. So,
Can I ask one more question? Can you clarify again for me, Mike, the property that's already under development, or right now with Jake's? Is that, it's in the TIF area?
It is in the district, so we will collect, it would be part of this, that the property tax would be partly abated or paid back to the developer, yeah.
To the developer of Jake, to the developer, not,
Well, so with this is there's no bonds involved here, so the proposal is a pay-as-you-go. In essence, Hike Development would front all the costs of the infrastructure.
yeah,
And then we pay them back. So the property tax that's collected from Jake's and whatever else might be developed on there would be included in this, even though there are no improvements necessarily that cross that lot. It is part of the district.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I've got one clarification and just to put it out there, and then I actually have one question. So the TIF is pretty much only the roads, curbs, the infrastructure part of it, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Storm sewer, here's the list.
Including purchasing the right of way.
Yeah, right-of-way purchase. The land, there is a land component, but that's the right-of-way.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, second question, scroll back to the map a minute. The roads that are being put in, how many lots is that actually benefiting, considering 1, 2, 3, at least 4 of the 6 lots that I see have, well, actually, I'd say 3, is the one on the end down there, okay, take it back, maybe 2, because 3 of those sit on an intersection. So really, is this benefiting 4 out of the 6 lots? As far as those roads going in?
In terms of direct access to a public street, yeah.
As
you
far
can-
as the ability to have a entrance that
yeah.
would be safe and effective.
Well, I think maybe Mr. Hicks could kind of answer his intent, but my understanding is these size lots are a little more marketable than the larger lots that were there before.
Well, I understand that. It's a matter of Commerce Drive access current versus what
Yeah.
the roads would provide. But as looking at 3 of those, a couple of those are on the intersection, which means you don't have effective
Yeah, we probably
safe
wouldn't want to access here.
entry.
Yeah.
So really, only 2 of the 6 existing lots would have any commerce access right now, one being the Burger King lot and the other being across from it. The rest of them need some type of other access for safety and traffic.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know how that would really work with this last one down here on the end, but
I think we talked at the last meeting about, are we going to allow Commerce Drive access, since it does have the access on the other streets?
Well, I mean, if those go in, then yes. If they didn't, then it's a matter of could they without it or with it, but
and
really only 2 of those.
we did. So the preliminary plat has been through the planning commission, and in
For-
fact, for this, what
Yeah.
you see, kind of this lot arrangement, we did allow one access here that lines up with the Harps entrance,
Okay.
but no other direct access onto Commerce.
So really only
Just-
one of
just
them
one
is allowed
more.
then.
Yeah.
So if not for this, then you really have an access problem to any of those lots.
Yeah, I mean, if not for this, then you undo that preliminary plat and you go back to the larger lots, and we'd have to probably really manage that very carefully with sight lines and access points there. Yeah.
And safe access points. Okay.
Well, and a lot of that would depend on what was developed in it. I mean, if,
Mhm.
we've changed the development model of what was there originally, I would assume,
From
by
industrial
doing
to
this.
commercial.
Anyone else? Any other comments, questions?
Now, the last TIF that was given in this area, was it for harps? Was that?
That's right. Yeah.
So it made it very successful to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that TIF is performing well. There were bonds with that TIF, and the revenues generated there. Now those include sales tax is a big part of those from the grocery store. This proposal doesn't include sales tax, but performing well. Yeah.
So in this TIF, all sales tax would still be full.
Yeah, the proposal is not to include any sales tax not to capture any new sales tax within the TIF.
All right. Good to move on. We'll move on then.
Yeah, thank you for the input.
Number 4, new business. Consider Resolution 1014 authorizing the acquisition of new public works facility and providing for the payment of the cost thereof.
Yes, Council, this is actually 2 related resolutions, 4A and 4B. I don't know that it's been made public yet, but now it is. We're pursuing the purchase of the property at 9620 Lexington Avenue, and we have decided to fully bond for that improvement, the purchase price of $949,000. And our financial advisors are recommending to us that we don't make that an open market bond sale, but rather we select an underwriter and negotiate the terms and placement of the bonds with them. So the two resolutions tonight make that possible. The first one is just to authorize the project, and the project in this case is simply the purchase of the property for $954,000, or the purchase price $949,000. We added some money in there for an appraisal, for some environmental assessments of the property, and other miscellaneous closing costs. So the total project costs we're estimating at $954,000. That's the project. Exhibit, or the other resolution, item 4B, essentially authorizes staff and our financial advisors and our bond counsel to engage Commerce Bank for the placement of the bonds. And again, Kevin is here tonight to answer any specific legal questions you might have about those or the process moving forward. Our purchase agreement that we executed last month has us closing on the 1st of July. I think it's July 3rd. So the closing of these bonds here would happen June 27th, so that in advance of the closing date. So,
Mike, can I ask that you put a map of that up,
Yep.
of that property up?
Yep.
Just so we're all seeing the same thing.
there it is.
Okay. Lori?
I just think it's important for the citizens and the public to know that this kind of a facility is something that we have had on our CIP. It was a plan for us to have or to build if we needed to. And so with being able to purchase this building, we're really being able to cut our costs in half of what an estimated price would have been if we would have had to go with the new facility. So I think we were all really being able to do, it's a good thing that we can do this and not at the expense of what a new facility would cost us for a
Yeah.
project that the city really does need. It's definitely
Yeah, it's
something needed.
Terrific facility, just exactly what we need from a public works standpoint, with the open shop area, the open bays, the drive-through bay, the yard out back, the offices associated with it. The location is great. We've had our eyes on this property for quite a while, and it came on the market about a month ago, I guess. So we decided
Just
to.
kind of building on what she said, the estimate in the CIP of building one was over 2.5 one.
Yeah, about 2.3.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then this being half that, how much are we going to be putting in to make modifications? to
Yeah,
this
we're gonna
roughly?
need about $250,000 to $270,000. We'll need to install some outside storage, covered storage out back, and a lift and some other equipment inside.
Which means even with the modifications, we're barely over half of what
Yeah,
the
we're-
other would be.
We're saving about $1 million. So the last time we looked at our CIP, it was about $8 million in bonding over the 5 years. Now that's $7 million. Yep.
Would you clarify for us and the public, we've all heard it, but why we are not going out to market with this bond, why it's important or makes more sense to negotiate with Commerce?
Yeah, well, Commerce holds our last two public offerings. So they know us well, we know them well. And the timing of this is relatively truncated. We, with the closing date of July 1st, don't know that there would be time to go out for a public offering in this case. But we're confident with the size of the issue, being on the smaller side, and our relationship with Commerce, that we'll be able to negotiate and get an interest rate, a term that is very comparable
To our last
to our last
public
offering. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from council for Mike?
Do you have a resolution number?
1014, the first one.
I'll make a motion, then we authorize resolution 1014 providing for the acquisition. I think I got the right one.
That's, yeah.
For the new Public
Works.
Works facility in the city of DeSoto.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion of the motion? If not, roll call, please.
Carmichael,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Murdock.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Want to do the next one as well?
Yep.
10:15.
I'll make a motion, 1015, resolution authorizing the issuance of the bonds for the acquisition of the property.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we get a second?
Second.
All right, questions or discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Carmichael,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdock.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Well, we'll negotiate a good rate.
Good.
All right. Item C, consider bids for seal coating. Brad?
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
What you have before you is the part of our annual street maintenance program, the projects that we're going to seal coat this year. We talked about in our March meeting. We did put these out for bid. We received 2 bids. Same 2 that we've had for the last 3 years, Pavement Management and Vance Brothers. And for the 3rd year in a row, Pavement Management has won the project. They did the seal coat work in the DeMeadows subdivision, and then last year in the Timber Trails subdivision. With that, I'll stand for any questions. It's a pretty straightforward bid process. I did have some conversations with both contractors prior to submitting their bids. We did, prior to this, had some fairly significant cracks in the asphalt paving, and we had those milled and filled. And so now we're ready for seal coat work. So with that, I will stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions for Brad on the seal coating bids? If not, someone would like to make a motion.
Sure, I'll make a motion. We accept the bid from Pavement Management in the amount of $76,226.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? That was $36 or $26?
$26.
Okay, I was looking in the spreadsheet. It
Oh.
said 30.
Sorry, it's whatever's on the spreadsheet, not what's on the recommended staff.
I don't want to short anybody $10.
$10, we'll make that up somewhere.
Michael, pay for it.
We'll figure it out.
Whoever typed that up's gonna pull that.
Yeah, all right, okay.
Rattle.
Just take it out of my next month's paycheck,
right.
all right?
I amend it to be $76,236.
All right.
And I'll acknowledge the amendment on the second.
All right, thank you. Any more discussion on the motion? If not, roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Carmichael,
Yes.
Murdock.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Review draft of transportation chapter of the comprehensive plan.
All right, I don't, Mike, did you want to take that? I mean,
Sure.
I don't
Yeah,
really.
yeah. Well, the reason
we
we put it
kinda-
on the agenda is, Brad made this calendar of the steps we want to take to get the comp plan finalized. The reason this is kind of a holdover from our joint workshop. If you'll remember, I think that workshop was before a council meeting, so we had a
Yeah.
deadline, and we didn't get we got through chapters 1 through 3 and had some good discussion there, but we didn't get to we got through 1 through 4, didn't get to chapter 5. So we wanted to just get this in front of you. The Planning Commission has seen it. We wanted to get it in front of you to get your input on its contents. Largely, this has to do with the meat and potatoes of all the public works stuff. The infrastructure things. So streets, roads, water, sewer, all of those things that are essential to orderly growth. So. And in this chapter is also a lot of the mapping that comes with our comprehensive planning. So we have a map of existing and future water service, existing and future sewers. We have our major thoroughfares map in there as well, and some other associated maps. I hadn't, intended to go through this on a word-for-word basis, but at your if you
All
want to
right.
jump in and have a discussion about any of the elements,
Well, I'll start.
yeah.
In the roadway discussions, we don't talk any about like including. I know we have a whole section that's talking about bike facilities, trails. We don't ever talk about including on-street bike lanes in any of these. And I think we really should be thinking about where we might, what routes we think it would be appropriate to include bike lanes on. I mean, if we're talking about complete streets, I think that should be part of the discussion.
Yeah, I think
'cause
that's a good idea. You want to?
we don't have control over 83rd and Lenexa. We do have control of our area, and just yesterday I had a car trying to pass a bike that almost put me into moving into the gravel shoulder because of potential head-on. So the safety of that is something we definitely should consider.
I'm all on board with that. We need to consider
Yeah.
bike within our. within
Is
our road
there?
section.
On
What are your thoughts about complete streets? Not necessarily overall blanket policy, but
Well-
a discussion about.
we can't have a truly complete street because we don't have any public transportation. I mean, that's the idea of complete streets. The pedestrian, it's the automobile, it's public transit, it's pedestrian, it's bikes, it's bird scooters, it's whatever, so.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
But to the extent that we have the facilities,
Yeah.
which is really everything but transit,
Right.
that we think that that's the way we want to accommodate. I think that's really where the
Yeah,
demographic is going. That's what residents are
Yeah.
looking for.
Our policy decision needs to be, do we think that or on-street bike facilities are important to include in our future plans? And I think they are, and that's why I wanted to bring it up and get the council's opinion on that.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that as we do improve roads, as we add new roads, anything that we can do, that it should be in our policy that we have complete streets that have all of that available.
Yeah.
I agree.
So there's a little bit of a discussion, section 5.8, about.
That's probably where I ran out of lunchtime.
Well, no, it's
Yeah, well,
not.
5.7 is
doesn't-
Well,
really-
it's more
complete
about
street.
just,
Yeah,
you know,
5.8.
It doesn't. It
Oh, I
doesn't.
didn't
Yeah.
read those. Yeah, I read all those.
I
It's
don't
not
think it gets where you
quite what
no,
we're
going.
saying, no,
No,
as
I
far
was
as the
thinking more
roads.
like when we talk about what we want local we have a definition of what we think each street would be, the recommendations for it, and I think that's where we would say that we think we would recommend that
Oh,
on-street
okay.
bike facility, this section should include, and I don't even know, it may be as much as, I think maybe we only had the typical for the arterials, but if we had the others no, we had them all.
Yep. We do.
So show that space reserved in the street for the bike lane.
Yeah, on these cross
In
sections.
the pictures. And then what are all those dimensions? I'm going way in the weeds on that, but all those dots on there just drove me crazy.
Yeah, I wondered if this wasn't our design guide. I thought there was a lot of
Yeah.
excess detail for a
Yeah.
comprehensive
Oh, yeah?
plan.
Can I
Yeah.
ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, Danny.
When we're talking about pedestrian and bike lanes and stuff, is that gonna change any of the stuff that we've looked at along 91st Street and stuff that we've already put in for, and, it wasn't included in there at that time, but
But 91st Street it was. All that was in the plan for 91st, so we have bike lanes included in 91st and the
Okay.
trail and the sidewalk, and so I think I just want to make sure that we memorialize it in our comprehensive plan, that that's what we want to do.
okay.
And are you kind of like wanting us to choose specific streets that we
I
think
don't-
are important, or
maybe,
just as a general?
It may be something we eventually add to that, because maybe not every arterial needs on-street bike lanes. Maybe it does, I don't know, but, so maybe there's some thought that needs to go into that, but.
So just as an example, say Kill Creek Road, in my opinion, is probably wide enough that you could have,
It should be striped with a bike
you
lane
could even
right
be
now.
striped right now with the bike lane, and it would be a wide enough road, and that was all right. But now if we go to Lexington Avenue,
It's not.
it's probably not,
No.
but in future improvements
But
of it,
consider-
would that be something that we would
Right,
want to say,
that's
when
the
we're going to
point.
do a major improvement on this road, this would be a major improvement we could do? I mean, and so, you've got particular ones that are important, and then, of course, those that aren't. But I think that, I think that would be something that would be,
But 83rd and Cedar Creek would not be.
They're not right now, no.
it's not right now. I mean, it
But
would
if we
require
do a
funding.
major investment in 83rd Street, we need to, that's the point. If we have it here, then we need to make sure that we include that in the consideration for that future design project or construction.
I think a bike routes map, establish bike routes.
Yeah.
And either put them on this map here, future transportation, but it's already a little busy.
Yeah, I know, that's,
A bike routes map.
There, you could use orange. There's still room for
They're
orange.
still orange, yeah.
So even though, it may not be on our plan right now to do a major change with 83rd, you never know what might come about that would trigger that to even be moved at a different time or sooner, or any other road. I just said that road, but maybe it's 95th, something that might trigger it to say, oh, we're going to do something better out
maybe we
there.
can get a build grant to do 95th
Right.
Street from city limit to city limit. And-
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've got 95th is a good example, because from Corliss to Kill Creek,
Creek,
it's a
not-
very great, it has it everything already, but from there, the other direction, wouldn't it be
Either way.
perfect if they matched and had the same, so
That was all my comments.
I agree with you.
Good, all right.
I wasn't gonna share all my confusion about all of
There is confusion there.
Well, I think those are things you could definitely share with Mike, or, scratch
Yeah, I
out.
was gonna do
since,
those offline.
you know,
but,
Okay.
as a professional in that area, I would,
all right, what do we
let you do
Well,
that.
I didn't. I'm not the author of that
Right.
figure. You've probably seen that one before. It's an
Yeah.
existing plan.
Was that something we need to then, how do we go about
Well, I'm
putting
hoping
this overlay?
Yeah,
Mike will do
I would
this.
assume Mike or
Yeah. Well, Brad and I,
Brad?
as we finalize the plan.
yeah,
Oh,
he'll bring it
Yeah.
back to us.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Put some words in a map together.
Yep.
Did anybody have anything else?
Yeah, I just want to make one little comment. If you notice, there was a couple of pictures actually added to this. So as I was reading through this today, it reminded me that I had taken a couple of pictures.
Oh, yeah.
And it came to, I know it's just a small thing and it's not really the major part of this, but it made me think about it, so I thought I'd bring it up, that when it was talking about the entrances, and these were two signs that I saw on my last road trip out in Junction City, and they're in there, and the advertising on it was total city type events and activities, but that one was a pretty cool looking monument sign that was built, probably an older one that was redone a little bit, and then the other one was in Great Bend. And again, it's, you're driving through and it's a billboard where activities could be posted and things that are going on right in town. So I just threw those in there just because they're kind of, I know we've talked a long time about different things like that. And I know there's ideas about a big one out on the highway, but it seems to me that, something that is our own, at our intersections, at our gateway entrances, it talked about that in here, and that's when I threw those pictures in for Mike.
First one in the middle of that roundabout at 91st and Lexington.
Yeah, it would be just perfect.
Of course,
you know.
well, it might be the right thing. I
Could
don't know.
distract people a little bit,
Too
but I don't,
distracting in the middle, I don't know.
I don't know, but the idea is there boards that you can, they're in a location. This one caught my attention. We were sitting at a gas station, and so I could sit and see what was going on with it. The other one was right in town too, where you're sitting at an intersection or you're sitting at a parking lot or somewhere, and just a little bit more usable, I feel, for giving information out for people. But no discussion needed. Just wanted to share those.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that black thing, the bottom part of it, that's?
That's a build.
Illuminated.
Yeah, that's a electronic.
Electronic,
They were
okay,
talking about
okay,
some event that was
okay.
going on.
Well, just the angle is
Yeah.
hard to see. I can see it now.
Yeah.
But, yeah, thank you.
All right.
So as we're talking about this section, are we going into the other public facilities, water, sewer?
Yeah.
Okay. And so some comments about sewer, and then I guess I didn't know what we're looking at in terms of getting feedback or other, I assume this is still being in iteration. So.
Yeah. Draft.
But on the sewer, so on the sewer map, we're talking about future service areas. A couple of questions or thoughts. green is representing phase one, so that would be kind of near term. The blues are representing phase two, and some thoughts I've got are the area. So I guess the kind of that new blob of green along Sunflower Road is probably new from previous versions of the comprehensive plan in terms of that being moved up in sequence.
This one?
That one,
Yep.
Which one?
the one that he's got the cursor over.
This
right there.
one.
So we've got that. We're thinking, okay,
North, south, and sunflower.
yeah. So with green, we're thinking, nearer term, phase one, there's that. Then there's the one along Lexington, south of K10. That area between K10 and 95th, Lexington, that's been kind of a near-term sewer service area for a couple of decades now, or close to it, decade and a half. My thought would be, I guess one question is, has anybody thought about the economics or the cost to do these relative to phasing? Because we've got that area south of K10 between Lexington and Sunflower that's a phase 3, yellow, that also goes into the new area that will be south of 91st Street. Up, right there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a phase 3, right? Bounded by phase 1 areas. It would seem just by, when I look at the map and I go, well, the blue that goes, the blue east of Kill Creek, which would be a phase 2, seems like of a less likelihood or less opportunity to me than the yellow where your cursor is at right now. Right? We keep talking about what are we going to do with this area, but we've made it a phase 3, yet we've made that area over there east of Kill Creek a phase 2. Whereas there's less upside opportunity from building a lot of sewer infrastructure. So I was wondering if we've looked at all at kind of balancing the costs associated with phase 1s and 2s, kind of the magnitudes of the costs of those, so that we try to shift it into areas where we're going to get nearer term benefits. So that area of yellow is the one that just sticks out to me because we talk about it a lot. I don't know why that wouldn't either be a phase 2 or a phase 1.
Phase one, I think, right.
Right.
Yep.
But then I would trade that
For the blue.
with other, or the other blue is the one that's, go back to your, that blue, I think because of topography, is going to be a very challenging,
There's not a lot of
I don't
development
see that being a
potential
phase
there
2,
either. Yeah.
maybe a phase 3.
And there's not a lot of development potential there either.
Not a lot of
You're not
development.
going to get density out there.
So, anyway, those are the two things that really stuck out to me on that map.
Yeah. So to kind of get back to this blob along Sunflower Road, and in the text, I think I described it a little bit. This is the contingency if we're able to negotiate with Sunflower to get that sewer easement, to get that sewer line.
Yeah.
That's why.
In which
that
case
shows
it
up.
could become a 2 or a 3.
Yeah. Right.
Or right. It just goes out in.
Because that line's existing, right?
That line exists, so that's sort of a.
It could still
Could
be
be
a
a
one,
day
even
one
if we
thing.
didn't get the line, we just got the easement, it would just be a whole lot more expensive.
Yeah, you just build it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it still might be a one, even if we can't get the pipe.
But
we
I
can-
think
as long as we
the
get route.
opportunities of growth along Sunflower
there,
up there
definitely.
are much less
Yeah.
than that area.
Right.
But
So
then-
where would we spend our money first? That's why I'm kind of saying, when you look at balancing out capital spend for sewer infrastructure relative to potential opportunity,
I think the reason, when I looked at this, and I'm the only one that's has any input so
Well,
far
then I'll rip
until
it apart.
tonight on these colors, so it's me. But I tried to look at what's most likely, and really that just.
well, I think you got to look at most likely
what I've
versus
heard.
relative need.
Yeah, I think it might be the same thing, Yeah.
Well,
So that green area there along that is on the assumption that we are able to obtain that
Yeah.
easement.
Well,
but then
then I-
also that corridor and that easement and that line
Does that create
is
a
the
branch
linchpin.
to expand further then?
It does. We kind of need this, or at least we need the easement, and we need to build a line because we can't serve any of this stuff down here through the existing system.
Right, we've got to.
It's jam packed. Meadows is full.
so it's got to be.
So this is a regional pump station, and it pumps back down 95th and into that line. So if you want any of these colors here, including this one we're talking about and all this green here, we have to have this first.
How do you
Now,
not have that pump station as a phase 1?
It is.
Blue
No,
is
it's
phase
blue.
two.
It's green. Right. There is a limited amount.
That's what I thought. That
we
because
could-
that area from Kill Creek to Hootamaki,
This-
basically, we've always said that could be served.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
There is.
you're right.
There
Then
is
to
a
go on
limited
and
amount
pick
of
up that
capacity.
yellow area that would exceed capacity,
Could. Yeah. Depending on what's there.
depending on
Yeah.
what the use is.
So that's kind of long-term stuff.
But we're gonna get that easement in that pipe.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Well, good. I mean,
That'll
that's,
make Ron happy.
which
Talked
one?
about McDaniel.
Oh,
We talked
oh, yeah,
about that
yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
So then, what is kind of the view for timing on comments on this section in particular?
Oh well, anytime. We're gonna be.
What was this calendar?
Yeah, we've got a calendar here, Brad. What are we doing? Gonna be talking.
Planning Commission, we do have, our implementation plan has been submitted to Mike and I from our consultants, so we're in the process of resubmitting that. And we'll take it to the Planning Commission on the 28th meeting. And then kind of see how it just alternates through. So
Just
then we
kind of-
After Planning Commission review, we'll bring it back to council. The final draft of Planning Commission. Planning Commission does have to have a public hearing for their adoption, and then we bring it back to council for a resolution.
Looks like we're trying to hit the final draft to you on July 18th.
Got it.
So anytime.
So over the
between
course
now
of
and
early June.
then.
Okay. Anything else?
Good input. Thank you.
All right. Should we move on? 2020 budget and CIP discussion.
Yes, Council, this actually is really just a CIP discussion. At our last meeting, when we were talking about the budget, there was some confusion about which version of the CIP we were operating under, and we've actually had a change to the CIP here in the last couple weeks with the purchase of the new Public Works facility. So I've revised that spreadsheet, that big colorful spreadsheet, but then I've also provided just kind of the plan, essentially that spreadsheet in narrative form, just kind of an outline form. So 2019 expenses and then revenues and projects, and then 2020. So I've kind of just tried to outline that. I don't know if this is helpful or not, but essentially for the budget, what we're looking at approving or authorizing or kind of cementing for 2020 is this 2020 narrative. So about 525,000 of that are reoccurring funding sources. So these are all the stuff at the top of that spreadsheet that transfers in from the general fund and things like that. And then there is additional obligations, general debt of $750,000 programmed in. And if you want to assign projects to that, that could be assigned to the roundabout, to City Hall improvements, and Lexington Avenue pedestrian crossing improvements. And then the expenses for next year, a lot of design. So you see a $270,000 amount in there. That is for the additional upgrades to the new Public Works facility that we're going to need. We just talked about a little bit earlier. Design for Miller Park drainage, design for 95th Street sewer extension. So this goes right back to the discussion about sewers we just had. Annual sidewalk program, and also $250,000 for design of the roundabout. And then lastly, $120,000 for City Hall safety improvements and asbestos removal. So those are kind of rubber meeting the road there on our 2020 budget. So the one for me, and again, just because we budget it doesn't mean we have to spend it. So during 2020 we'll be discussing all these. Yeah, the one, I think the most nebulous one for me is that 95th Street sewer extension. The discussion we just had about timing of that and what's most important to design that. I think we've talked about before, because there's another one on the CIP later on for the extension of sewers out to 103rd and Edgerton Road, kind of really focusing on that economic development opportunity that exists out there. we've had discussions about maybe designing those and shelf designing those two projects, and not pulling the trigger, because 2021 would have us building that sewer improvement. So
Yeah. So,
Well-
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, don't we ought to synchronize the thought of the 95th Street sewer phasing with preliminary planning for 95th Street from Lexington to Sunflower, because we're gonna have to take responsibility for that. So we don't wanna, if we're gonna push the sewer out there, we better be prepared.
And I was kind of thinking, even, maybe it's not too early, maybe it is too early, but the property along 91st Street extension and that property along 95th Street that would benefit from that sewer extension there should be, those property owners should be talked to about potentially forming a benefit district. Because that's going to decide, I mean, if we think it's going to happen, then we're not going to do it all on our own dime, not if it's needed, but if those property owners believe that. believe in it
No,
and-
absolutely right, because it'll affect the value of their property. I
Right.
mean, it's gonna increase the value of the
Right.
properties.
We're not going to do it, to
Speculative.
create that,
Right.
that wealth for those
Right.
people. But if the projects are there and people are there that want to participate, then.
So there are, the revenues in the CIP do assume benefit districts for portions of both of those projects.
So I guess that's my question is then, when
Yeah.
does that, that seems to me would dictate, before we spend any money on design, we would need to know, in some sense, are there 51% of the people that own property here that
Absolutely.
want to pay for a sewer here?
You're spot on.
So those are things we should
Begin to
probably
communicate.
start to communicate and work
Yep.
on and put the groundwork in place.
Which I think the comprehensive plan update is a good place to
Right,
couch that
exactly.
discussion.
Right.
Yep.
Now, I'm still confused, Mike.
Okay, maybe I am too. Let's find out.
Riverfest restrooms. Is that in the CIP or not?
No, it is not.
All right, still
We
not in
took
the
it out.
CIP. We talked about it, and we're getting
No.
dollars, but it's not in the CIP.
No, so what we've elected to do is fund those restrooms with the
Oh, okay.
contingency.
It's not.
in
That's
this
why
year's
it's not
budget.
in it. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I've been telling people we're going to have restrooms down
Yep,
here, and then
we are.
like,
Yeah.
All right.
No, we decided that $450,000. I can't
Right.
remember what we call it. We're doing that this year.
discretionary
Discretionary
projects. It's one of
project.
our
Yes,
discretionary
that's right.
projects.
from the
Strategic.
Strategic.
I wish I had my budget copy here. I don't remember. We called it something really good. It's still a line item here, but
All right.
we zeroed it out.
All right. Yeah, that's why I was confused for this.
it's happening.
Because
It is happening.
I promised a lot of people a restroom at that barbecue
Yeah,
contest.
yeah. We I have Steve Chick on it, so that's all I need to say, right?
Not a shower or anything, just a bathroom.
No, just
overboard
Just a
now.
flush toilet.
Just a toilet. People might be really long line waiting in line.
Yeah. We're still going to have the porta pots for those bigger events, but.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great.
Good.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
No more more discussion on that from anybody?
Thank you, because that made it a lot easier.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I can throw
Okay.
everything else away. This one.
Executive session, we have none. And advisory reports, city administrator.
I don't have anything specific. I'm here to answer questions if you have them.
Okay. Anybody have a question they'd like to ask Mike? Anything?
Anything.
Who's gonna?
Job related or not?
All right, I don't see any takers.
All right. Might be your last chance.
Seriously, I do have a couple of questions.
Don't let him do it, Mayor.
You can poll any of us after the meeting, Derek. City planner, Mr. Weisenberger.
Just a couple things. The Burger King site plan is on the plan commission for the 28th, and also the final plat for the I-10 Commerce Park development.
Okay, all right. Lana Anna's gone. Sarah, do you have anything you want to share with the group?
I just wanted to thank the mayor for helping with the barbecue event. Also, the new DeSoto Community Guide and Membership Directory is that the magazine that we produced is available at the Chamber and EDC offices, and we'll be using that as an external marketing magazine for the community. So we'll make sure and give you a copy of that.
Great, thank you. Council comments. Kevin, would you like to start us tonight?
Nothing to contribute.
All right. Lori?
Yeah, I just have one thing that I want to get feedback, I guess, kind of on it. This is really a simple thing, but out at the barn on Wednesdays is a farmer's market, as it has been for many years and many years. And, you know, it really can be a big asset for the city for people to have that available. But for a good market, you need support. If you have support, then you can get more vendors. And I'd just like to see the city supported in a little way, even if it's just putting it on the website that it is happening at the times that it happens, and maybe, you know, Facebook every now and then or something.
So you're just talking about communications.
Yeah. Right. But I don't want to wait till next year. I mean, I just think that we, you know, when we had our last council retreat type thing where we came up with ideas and talked, I think Kevin, you and I were we together in that? I think maybe not.
Who were there?
Had kind of the amenities type things and the public view and, you know, a lot of the marketing and those type of things. And, you know, when you start to look at all the little things that make DeSoto as wonderful as it is, that is, to me, kind of a small business, even though it's not really a business for any one person. It's a multi-tiered thing, and we have people that work really hard at it, and I would like the city to see where we can go as to sometime in the future maybe thinking about making it more of a city type thing. But until we have the personnel to do that, maybe at least support the ones that are trying to make this happen. I don't think anybody that sells goods out there makes tons and tons of money, but because they all have other jobs, but they love doing it and they have some great stuff. And I think would be nice for us as a city to support it as a business, just like any other business that we try to support in this community. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Rob?
A couple things. One, good old roundabout. So I've had some actually very positive conversations with a number of residents, some that were against it. The number one thing I like to ask them is, okay, so you say you hate them, what's your solution? At which point I've had a couple of them very honestly just say, I don't know because I don't have one. So, and then there's been a lot of discussion, and when educated and kind of going through, there's been some positive. The interesting one, which is why I'm actually commenting on, because as we all know, in and around DeSoto blew up on it. But one of the things that constantly was said was, from a number of people, was the safety of our students. And so it's one of those things, Kevin and I started I made a comment on and around DeSoto about, well, you know, all these schools are starting to put them in as their primary entrances. Mm-hmm. So that got me thinking, and then talked with Kevin, and we started pulling stats from St. James, from the ones that actually have put them in as primary entrances. So, and I'm not going to go into that tonight, but the one that was interesting was, and I mentioned meeting with Alvy earlier this week and asking him two questions at the end of all the personal stuff, and one was roundabout. And the interesting thing that he came back with on that was he actually likes them. But Mill Valley is dealing with traffic congestion twice a day on Monticello, kind of like we are, and a senior project of a number of the seniors there was to study different studies, to study roundabouts, to study intersections, and actually to look at what would be the solution of all the different options and capabilities. And the students' recommendation for Mill Valley primary entrance was a roundabout. So it was interesting that even the students, after their evaluation and conclusion, came back with, for Mill Valley, a roundabout's one of the ones. So just FYI on the interesting side of dealing with that. So,
Well, and there's another roundabout right on Monticello, just to the north of the
yeah, so
school
that'll
anyway.
be-
So they're already
that'll
going
be
through a
kind of- That'll be kind
roundabout.
of two back to back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they already know how to do them.
So,
Olathe North obviously has theirs right in front. Blue Valley.
well, yeah, there's a number, but
So-
it was interesting that the
Yeah.
students' choice came back.
You know,
to,
and I may have told this story. It's totally anecdotal. It has no scientific basis whatsoever. But it was just I picked my son up one day during school, taking him to a doctor's appointment, and it was after the last council meeting. And I said, "Hey, you know, we've been talking about a roundabout here at this intersection." And he goes, "What do you think high school kids think about driving roundabouts?" And he goes, "Oh, they're fine. They're fine." And I go, "Well, do you think that the perception is that, you know, they're hard or they're more dangerous?" He goes, "No, they're really good." So I had a thought. I like that they actually did that as a project. But then the other thought I had is working with, say, high school journalism, just for them to, you know, maybe gather some information on it. But I really appreciate hearing that they actually did it as a project, which means they actually probably did some sort of research. They probably actually looked into the alternatives. And I think, as we know, you know, the accident rates, not only are they low, and Mayor can support this as well, but not only are they low, but accidents you have are less severe than they are. They're typically property damage and not bodily injury and those kinds of things. So appreciate you sharing that.
So the second one was one that was kind of continued from 4 weeks ago when I was out on the trip, and it was via the phone. It's dealing with the digital signage and the digital billboard. And then last week I didn't bring it up just because I wasn't feeling well and didn't want to talk. So some acid reflux, some stuff. It's like, So a couple of things on that and a couple of points on that. One, the Planning Commission, when evaluating the text amendment, voted on it in November on a split vote 3-3. So Mike was talking about the fact when on the phone when I was calling in, kind of the history of it, and then it made it sound like they had actually dealt with it for 4 to 5, 6 months. When the vote actually took place in November, December they didn't meet because of Christmas, but they continued carrying it forward, hoping to have a full planning commission of a full 7. At that point, the last vote would have been most likely favorable to the text amendment. He was absent in January. They dealt with it and said, well, yeah, we'll say that we have to have they started to deal with it and then said, no, we have to have a full planning commission board. So it carried over to February, and then Mr. Hemphill was trying to get it off their platter, both in January and February. So finally, they kind of said, well, we'll change it to be just what we had voted, which came up to a neutral vote. Of the 6 that voted, the 3 that were a no, 1 was just a no matter what without giving reason. 1 was a no because of the perceived size. And 1 was a no not because of the signage, not because of the digital aspect of it, but simply because the city did not have control of it. So the fact that there was potential advertising on it that we didn't have control, because asked twice in 2 of the planning commission meetings of, so if it was a digital sign that the city actually had 100% control of, you would have no problem with the text amendment the way it was, and the answer was no. So it was completely a control issue. So bringing that back, it was interesting, Lori, that you brought up the 2 pictures tonight. Because, Mike, do you still have access to the original images that started this whole thought process with me?
Boy, remind me, which ones were
Okay,
those?
let me make it easy. Do you have access to your email?
No,
No.
not on this,
Okay.
sorry.
Because, yeah, these would have been way back. Because the original, and I don't have a way to display it up there unless,
Well, let me see if
I mean, this
maybe
goes
planning
way.
commission packets.
It wouldn't have been shown in council.
Yeah, I was looking planning commission.
It might. Yeah, you might have included one of them in an early version of the discussion.
No, so these are pictures that you
Yeah,
took?
pictures.
Oh, okay. I don't think it would have been.
Would have been, remember that one?
Yeah.
That,
Okay.
those two are the ones I'm thinking of. And then also that one.
Right.
That's the semi-trailer truck size?
I'm
Two semi-trailer trucks, okay.
I'm not sure on these. They're pretty close to it. And that's where the semi-truck trailer size, if you look at it perspective-wise of where the signage would be, every single sign sitting on the side of K-10 highway would perspective-wise be larger and hide the full billboard size at some point in time during the transit of your drive. The Lexington Avenue sign, as a matter of fact, one of those signs, the bigger Lexington Avenue exit, hides the entire Super 8 building. So you have a sign because it sits right at the edge of the highway that hides entire buildings. But the whole concept, and
I guess I haven't seen that Super 8 sign.
if you're driving westbound on K10, one of the actual street signs will hide the entire Super 8. It's that large in perspective because the Super 8 building is bigger, but I mean, my hand covers your body, and your body's a whole lot bigger than my hand. And so with all those signs that are right on the edge of the highway, where the position of this would have to be because it wouldn't be able to be in the right of way, all those signs at some point would cover it. But the concept that got me started on this in the first place was, number one, communication. Okay, because having the ability to have signage that changes and having the ability to promote what's going on in the city and promote the city was something I wanted to see. At which point, Ron McDaniel had talked to me about Travis wanting to put up the billboard and basically having just the little DeSoto static sign underneath and kind of being tokenary in that. But what I really would love to have seen, and this is where I emailed him, why I asked about your email was I emailed him to you kind of mid-meeting to where if you had it, but
I'm not coming up with them. I know I've got them somewhere. Sorry.
so effectively, I mean, I'll do what I can. What Lori had sent, I had originally seen a little bit larger version of it in place. And there were two versions of this that I saw that actually looked more like a monument with the signage in place. And the thing is, with the signage, it's not that cheap to put in place. And it'd be great. And I mean, ideally, I wouldn't mind having something like this that the city had 100% full control of, to where we could promote and we could advertise and we could do. The problem is it becomes cost effective as far as can we afford it? Is it anywhere near the priority compared to some of the streets, roads, sidewalks, parks that we want to do? So the whole text amendment and talking with Travis was when I went to talk to Travis, basically said, look, I don't mind the concept of the billboard. Billboards are all over Johnson County. Electronic billboards are in Johnson County. And while it is a realty sign, you have a billboard on K10. It's just called a realty sign, but it is a full-size billboard. So they are around. People are becoming accustomed and used to them. But then it still came back to the cost of how could we do it with the cost. And my view is we have other things to spend our money on. But it sure would be nice. And that's where, in talking to Travis, saying, okay, look, I don't mind bringing this up, but A, it's going to have to look better, look not like a billboard on a pole. It's going to have some features to make it look landscaped and look nice. Second, and more importantly to me, in dealing with this, was it has to benefit the city. Absolutely has to have benefit to the city, and not just a tokenary little sign under the billboard that's fractionally the size of it. So at that point, in talking to him, got him to the point where he would agree that of 8 rotations at about 8 to 9 seconds each, the city would have 1 no cost. So at that point, we've got exposure of 1/8 of a day being able to put on school events, put on city events, put on the concert series, put on city council meetings, put on public hearings, be able to promote and communicate 2 things: promote the city to those driving by on K10, and also communicate to our own residents or traveling between Kill Creek and Lexington, which I do all the time. It's about 2/3 of the time that I'll go K10, and about 1/3 of the time I'll go through Lexington. But at the same time also benefit, and this is where the chamber, and I've had a number of businesses ask me about it as far as where it stands, providing a means for small businesses to have a chance of advertising on it and being out there. And that's where the chamber would have had first right of refusal for any of the billboard spots to be able to break it up and make it affordable. So the concept was being able to promote and communicate. The benefit of working with or trying to work with Travis was there wouldn't have been a real cost to us, and it would have been able to be completed. Now, in doing so, there was some thought of maybe we could tie and save the cost of putting a DeSoto monument sign to it and work in conjunction with them. The other cost, and this actually came into discussion with Mary Guntert, where it's well, if you have that, then do just 2 smaller ones at the entry points and then have that be the one that communicates. So the whole concept of it came from being able to communicate and promote, but yet you have somebody that already wants to do it. So you give up having full control, but provide the ability for small businesses to be able to promote and to also have the city constantly up there at no cost. So that's
Well, it's not up there constantly. When you
well,
get an 8.
up there
An 8 is not constant.
consistently consistently up there.
Yeah, but,
So
you know, when you're talking about, well, let's add the school in, let's add other businesses in or stuff, and then
the businesses
you're
would be
starting
the
to-
businesses would be separate from ours.
Okay, but the school wouldn't, and then also
That-
all
the-
of our other functions
well,
that the city does.
It would the
You
eighth
know,
the one
that's-
eighth the one eighth
that-
the
that
one
would
eighth
be
would
the-
be up to us to decide what we want to do with if we wanted to include the
That's
school or
still
not.
the time span's getting, you know, that's what I disagree with, is the time and control. That's my biggest thing.
I mean, I would be 100% for doing a smaller one if we had full control, but it comes back to cost of priorities. And this was a means to be able to have some of that and be able to promote.
So what you're looking for here is a polling of the council to see if we're of an appetite, the council's of an appetite to have the
The text
planning
amendment.
commission reconsider the text
Because
amendment.
even with the text amendment, that paves the way for the signage to be capable. But in the text amendment, it still has to go through a special use permit, which the special use permit can dictate appearance, can dictate length of time, can dictate what it looks like. There, in the text amendment, there were building material considerations. There was clearly in there the intent that there has to be benefit to the city and work with the city to where there's benefit to the city. So the text amendment was designed with that type of piece in play.
Do you want time to think about it? You want to bring back consider it and then discuss it at the next meeting? You want to hear? I don't want to put anybody on the spot. If you want to ruminate over it for a couple weeks and then we can talk about it again at our next meeting. Or we
It doesn't
talk
really
about it
matter. I
now?
mean, I've thought about it a lot, and number one, I always avoid that little section of K10 if I can, because there's wrecks on that section of K10 more than anywhere else I see on K10. You guys may not, you better support me on that one. Backup and traffic. Communication with city citizens going 75 miles an hour isn't my mode of communication, so I'm not saying that that's, to me, the best place to communicate. I'm not against electronic signs. I would like to have total control over what we're putting our name on, and I probably would not ever promote one that has City of DeSoto all over it when we don't have control of what's on it. So, I'm not in big favor of this. I don't want all of a sudden for us to look like we're not what we are, which is a town of 7,000 people and not a town of 20,000 people. So I'm not a big fan of it. I think it's going to be advertising things that aren't anywhere near us. Maybe some people can afford to advertise on it, but it'll probably be more of the manufacturers that are advertising jobs or something. I don't really know. So I don't know. I still, as much as we've talked about it, I'm not convinced it's something that I'm in big support of. So that's just my give on it.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I guess on the planning commission, maybe split vote or maybe it was timing issue, but I do feel like that had there been an overwhelming ambition to make this kind of a change, that they probably would have saw it through and it probably would have happened. But it's been something we've talked about for years and years and years, and I just didn't see that they evaluated it as an autonomous body and skewed towards favor over it. So I tend to go with, I think their outcome was their outcome. It was maybe neutral, maybe a toss-up. So I didn't see that to change it. I've never been a huge fan of signs. I think you can see that from my time on Planning Commission. But I'm open to it. I guess from, or could have been, had the community's attitude about it changed. And I don't gather that it did from that process. From a communication perspective.
Can I make just one
Sure.
more? When I've talked to the people in the community and explained what benefit there was to the city, it was just like the roundabout, where education and communication about what it entailed and what it did changed attitudes.
Well, on communication, I'm the same way. I see, the audience that you're going to create that impression with from a message that is up periodically is random relative to our population, relative to our citizens, and relative to the time that they happen to have driven by it. So, in terms of mass market advertising, billboard advertising, you're casting an extraordinarily wide net, and you're hoping to hit a few, and that's what I think would be happening. My thought would be anything that we're going to do with communication really needs to be focused on our community. We need to do a really good job of getting to our residents or to the population that would be paying attention to DeSoto. So I think, I think we're going to do a way better job of communication through a communication director that's using print opportunities, social media opportunities, and we're really going to engage a greater number of people. As far as promoting, I could be for a monument signage scenario like a Eudora sign or an Olathe sign or one of those community signs that's a feature that is saying, welcome to DeSoto. You're in DeSoto city limits, and here we are. This is our place along the road, as opposed to something that's mixed in with advertising. So for promoting ourselves, again, I would say if I would want to advocate $1, I would rather any dollar go to our EDC and our chamber in terms of their activities to promote our community, particularly better funding our EDC operations so that we can create growth and opportunities, and for our chamber so that we can support our local businesses within our community, which rolls back into a communication thing, actually getting messages to our citizens of our chamber members and what they're doing. So I don't see anything that's changed my opinion of it. So I'm not a big
Okay.
fan of it.
Danny?
I don't have anything else, Mayor.
All right. Kevin?
At first I was very open to it. I actually spoke to Mike before the meeting tonight about smaller signage. I didn't hear from Mary, but I did have talked about smaller signage being at the outskirts of our city limits and being beneficial to the looks and appealing to our community. I'm not against this particular thing, if it had, if we knew all the particulars on it, I'm still open. I'm not gonna say I'm totally against it, but I know that there is other monument, as far as having one monument sign in the middle of the city, I don't know what that does us. I think we need to have them on when you enter our city to say that you're here. And that's what I would rather see. And there are small signage.
And
Gardner has 20,000 people, and they have a wooden sign at 56 and something that still looks decent.
Yeah, you
Well,
see signs like that all across this, I mean.
Well,
Timber Road.
Yeah.
56.
and I was going to say,
Yeah.
There are those.
So,
and even the pictures that Lori provided tonight, smaller ones that we could change what's on there as they get off exits, things like that. I'm fine with something like that because being able to rotate and promote and communicate, is this going to be the way that our residents receive primary communication? No. But we need to try and reach our residents in every way. I mean, we've got money that we're investing in this annually, but there's still residents that don't pick it up and read it. And there's residents that do not go to our Facebook page and do not go to our Twitter, and they listen to in and around to DeSoto. And so at that point, my view of this, as far as any electronic sign, I'd love to have 100% control. If that means a smaller sign that's at the ends of it and being able to promote and communicate, where when people get off at an exit, they see the information, then I'm all for that, fine. I mean, but it's another way to reach and get the communication out and be able to promote. And if we have full control, we could promote the school district, and school district events, which are some of the things that are one of the things we all say is best about our community. So I'm open to ideas. My original idea, like I said, was something similar to, on a little bit larger scale, what Lori had put up tonight, where let's be able to communicate and let's be able to promote somewhere along the highway, because there are 30, 40,000 cars a day. And if they see it, it's not a one-time see, it's a repetition. Where if you see, hey, there's something 3, 4, 5, 6 times, you're going to start to notice it. So I don't mind saying, okay, let's not do the billboard thing, but let's keep talking about a way to be able to communicate and rotate our message that's on the highway side of things to where our residents can see things and even non-residents see things are going on in the community.
I think we're all in favor of communication. But I think we'll let this one ruminate a while. We'll pick it up, and we will not drop it. I mean, obviously, we're going to keep talking about.
Can I just make one last comment? And this is just general, that, this council in the last 5 years, even the last 4 years, has found a way to get a lot of things done that 5 years ago, 6 years ago, you would have never thought we had the money to do. And it's happening because we're finding ways to get things done. So we will find a way, when it's right, to get what we need for this sign that will be best for our community and best for our population and where we want it, without having to go out on a limb, make a bunch of changes that could wide open anything, and have our name on something that may not be what we want. So if we be patient, we will get it done, I guarantee.
All right. Thank
off-
you, Rob.
First of all, I think that was well said, that our council is clicking and doing a lot of things that we haven't seen in the past. I guess one last thing that, one about the TIF or possible sign with a developer. I'd like to see those folks contribute at the highest level for our EDC and our chamber before they get awarded these type of things, so that they are given back to our community and at the highest level. that's
It's
possible.
very common that gets written into development agreements, that they're at whatever the highest level is. And is Hike, Sarah, this would be a question for you, is Hike a member now of the Chamber and EDC?
They are.
Okay.
On the EDC side, it's at the entry level.
So that's my comment. I just
All
think
right.
that they need to be
I agree.
at the high level.
Well,
have
and I
anything else.
think involvement with the community too, with the,
Exactly.
as far as using the materials and the contractors we.
Oh, yeah,
have in our city.
absolutely.
Like I said in that statement earlier tonight, I think that's definitely has to be in there.
Anything else, Danny? No, it was your turn anyway.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to
No,
add to
sir.
that.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Mayor.
I got 5 things I want.
Okay.
Just 5?
All right, let's go.
Oh,
Gosh, no. But my wife did tell me I need to do a better job of telling everybody what I've been doing. So I'm going to work on that. Next meeting, I will tell y'all what I've been doing as your mayor when I'm not in the meeting. I would entertain a motion.
Because we got a vacation. We're not telling them everything. I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.